FSC, Fest Jack Speed and Custom Shop. Well, the other day we finally got my son's Ford truck running. And as you can see behind me, it's one heck of a spaghetti incident back underneath the hood. We didn't really wire it right. We just basically wired it good enough so she'd run and be able to go around the block effectively. But obviously we're not leaving it like that. So in this video, all we're going to do is basically pretty up the wire harness, actually make a wire harness, and then make it look, well, like it should, like somebody actually cared about what they put together. We know she runs, you know she runs good. Let's go ahead and get started. The other day, like I just said, we got it running, and as you can see, it's just wires everywhere. We got wires crossing over the back of the engine going toward the MSD box. Heck, we even got this old can of brake fluid holding up your vent from the fuel command center right here. That has to be routed over to the gas tank. And you see, yeah, these are like the best connections in the world right there, right? For your fuel pump. And then we got your relay over here. Or is it somewhere flying around here? Right there. We got your relay run underneath there. That runs the other fuel pump that's bolted onto the frame of the truck. And you got your MSD 6AL box. They built such a nice piece of product right there. And then you see how we wired it in, just draped over. And then over here, of course, you got all the wires coming to and from your distributor. Everything going in and out of your FiTech EFI setup. Everything going right over here. Once again, that's like a fire waiting to happen right here. And once again, oh look, a red ground wire. I guess that's why I bought all new wire the other day to make new. Oh, look at this, all the way over here, crossed underneath the grill, down under here. More wiring for their ground return from your fuel pump again. So yeah, as you see, it ran nice, it runs good, and looks like crap. So, let's make it all new. Right here, I just got a bunch of wires, different assorted gauges and colors to choose from here. Most of it 16, some of it 14. I do have that big spool right here is 10 gauge. I've got a big spool of 10 gauge right here in black. And then I have all these right here. These are the little wire looms you can put them in and make them look nice. And of course, I got electrical tape to seal up the ends. So you're probably wondering, why did he jack up the truck to work on the wiring up under the hood? I'm going to run the vent line from the fuel command center down to the fuel tanks. That's the first job I'll do. And I'll show you why right here. Here's a diagram directly from FiTech regarding the fuel command center. Right here. Vent hose. Connect to vent line port on fuel tank or plumb new line if no vent line exists. Well, no vent line does exist, at least not all the way to the fuel command center. Now, some trucks of this era had vented gas caps. These are not actually. I pulled on them and they don't pull anything. Nothing comes through them. This runs the vapors through or intake into the tank through a pair of vapor canisters, or charcoal canisters, I should say. So these gas caps are going to have to be replaced because these have to be vented. No longer is it going to work the old way. So I'll show you the plumbing underneath the truck. These rubber line go into hard line right here. It's up under the frame, right about even where the X pipe is in the transmission tail shaft, so you have a rough idea of where under the truck we are. And these hard lines go, one's a forward tank, one's a rear tank. And you can see they go up under the frame, or through the frame, to these charcoal canisters. These charcoal canisters are bolted directly to the frame right here. The incoming air, there was a fitting that came up on the top of the frame under here, if I could find it, that went right on top of the frame, right up next to the starter. Matter of fact, it bolted right there. We have since removed it. Matter of fact, look right there on the top, that corrugated line right there. That corrugated line right there was the tube. See my finger? That tube came right under here and wrapped up around, and the intake air as the tanks drained came from underneath the air cleaner on top of the engine, came down through next to the engine, down the frame, and up into that hole. All right, so the basic plan is to run from the FiTech EFI fuel command center, that vent port that I showed you, down along the cross member, then across maybe the top of the frame, or maybe even into the frame. Either way, it's going to hook to a T and then be attached to the both return lines coming from the tanks. This way, it'll fill up one or the other tank. So what I'll use is the 5/16 powder-coated brake line that I have, big old coil. So the first step is complete. Have the vent tube hooked up, rubber line down a powder coated brake line for a hard line going down next to the frame. And it routes from up under there, all underneath the cross member, up next to the headers on the top of the frame. Secured to there, that way I don't have to worry about anything getting loose. Up around the side of the motor mount and down. And then to the hard lines going to the returns of the tanks. Okay, so here's our next problem. We have this MSD Blaster 2 coil. And I went and bought a little bracket here by MSD to hold it up. Now this is an oil-filled ignition coil, so it has to stand vertical. This is the factory one that came out of the truck. It sits on the intake similar, just like this, on this bracket. Problem is, there's no real place to put this. Now, I did look at mounting this bracket literally right about there on the top of the bracket for the air conditioner. Trouble is, it's really close to the hood, right about here. So that's not really going to work. That other bracket lays down right here. But there's no room here with the fuel line now to stand the coil up somewhere like so. And I really don't want to back out the intake bolts, which are those silver bolts right there, and the other one here, right underneath them wires. So the next best place seemed to be right about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bracket that goes underneath this bracket, holding the stock holder vertical to hold the Blaster 2 coil. Right about there. That way it doesn't interfere with the distributor or anything else, because there's the big empty pocket where there used to be a vacuum advanced diaphragm, which now there is not. So now I've cut the bracket, just a little piece of angle iron, and I'm going to weld this piece about there, and then bolt this bracket like so. After this is done, I'll mock it up for the time being, but eventually I'm going to take this back off the truck, sandblast it, and paint it to match the brackets that I already have painted. Well, for now, we got to get something in there that works. Okay, so unfortunately I lost my camera guy, so I'm here by myself. So in the end, this is how the bracket mounts up. Now I just got to wire it. Here's the beginning of the wiring harness. right off of your MSD box here, wrapping around. There's one big loom of wire. And of course, the spaghetti incident starts over here. But we're getting there. Okay, so now I have the wires all set up in this plastic wire loom. The fuel pump relay screwed down to the inner fender well. On up and around. And hooked up much nicer. I just have to put some wire loom on that. Now, as you see, it looks a lot nicer. Thank you for watching. As you can see, it looks a whole heck of a lot nicer than it did when we first got it running. Earlier in the video, you saw some honestly crappy footage. Well, my son had it as a birthday present, which of course his birthday is a little bit before Christmas, and I got him a little drone. There's two reasons for this drone. Number one, eventually I'm going to be doing a lot more filming action scenes with the cars. That's going to involve a much more expensive and nicer drone. Once I register that with the FAA and all that whatnot and deal with the licensing requirements for me as a commercial operator of the drone, we'll deal with that. However, we did get my son the drone for 2 reasons. 1, he could use the practice before I hand him over a much nicer drone. And 2, well, like I said, it's his birthday and it's just something for him to do and play around just as a hobby and just to mess around with a drone, basically. Just so you know, obviously the door's closed and this is a large building, so there is no FAA issues with anything going on inside the building. So, sorry about the poor quality of the footage. If you don't like it, let me know. If you like it, let me know. I just think it's another interesting way to film work inside the shop, just to throw it at you. Give me some comments. Let me know what you think. Like, dislike, whichever. All right, fire them up. With that being said, I am Steve Festjack. This is FSC, FiTech Speed and Custom Shop. What else could I build for you?
Go!